Coming up on Arirang News. The government's budget proposal for next year has been unveiled, worth over 677 trillion Korean won. While adhering to a belt-tightening policy, the government aims to focus on the vulnerable groups and economic revitalization. The Nat'l Assembly is aiming to pass a set of bills for improving people's livelihoods during a plenary session slated for tomorrow. Possible conflict is still expected, however, over some non-negotiated bills. Broadcast worldwide, Asia's largest broadcasting and video market kicked off for a 3-day run on Tuesday. It's at the largest scale in its 24-year history. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. We start with the budget proposal set for next year, which promises to allocate more funds to vulnerable groups amid the government tightening its belt. Our finance correspondent Lee Soo-jin explains.
The government, while continuing its tightening stance, is focusing on investing in policies that aim to boost the livelihood of vulnerable groups. To do so, pan-governmental efforts will be directed towards expanding welfare support and vitalizing the economy.
내년에도 이러한 기조를 이어 여러 부처가 경계를 넘어 함께 사업을 기획하고 집행할 수 있도록 협업 예산을 확대했습니다. 우리 정부는 역대 어느 정부보다도 어려운 분들을 두텁게 지원하고 있습니다. 앞으로도 이러한 약자 복지 기조를 계속 이어갈 것입니다.
During a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, the Yoon administration proposed a budget for next year of 677 trillion Korean won, or around $510 billion at the current exchange rate. That's an increase of 3.2% from this year's budget. While it's larger than the increase of 2.8% of the 2024 budget, the government is continuing to tighten its belt as it remains in the process of strengthening fiscal soundness.
In the process of responding to the pandemic, the sustainability of our finances significantly weakened, and not just in our country, but in all countries. Despite this, the government will diligently invest in areas where investment is required.
As part of efforts to expand welfare, the government will increase the maximum annual basic living allowance for low-income families to around $17,000 from the current $16,000. That's a rise of $1,059 compared to last year. To vitalize the economy, the government is providing financial support for small business owners that include subsidies of a maximum $225 per year for delivery and shipping costs. The research and development budget will also be set at a record high of around $22 billion, with a focus on boosting investment in major industries such as semiconductors. And to address the country's low birth rate, the government will raise next year's budget for parental leave benefits by more than $1 billion compared to this year's. This will provide paid parental leave of up to around $1,800 per month for the first 3 months. With next year's budget, South Korea's so-called managed fiscal deficit, which excludes social security funds like the national pension, is expected to fall more than $10 billion compared to this year. The government plans to submit the bill to the National Assembly in early September to be finalized by December. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Delving a bit deeper, the country's budget for the defense sector is set to surpass 60 trillion won for the first time. This comes amid growing threats from North Korea. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
South Korea's defense budget for next year will likely be around 61.6 trillion won, equal to $46.3 billion. This is a 3.6% increase from this year. If the Defense Ministry's proposal is passed by the National Assembly next week, defense spending will exceed 60 trillion won for the very first time. In 2025, the ministry plans to spend $13.5 billion to boost defense capabilities, including weapons acquisitions. This is up by 2.4% on year. It will also spend $32.7 billion on operating costs for military forces, up 4.2% compared to this year. Funds are set aside to strengthen response capabilities against evolving North Korean threats. The ministry plans to spend $4.6 billion to bolster the three-axis deterrent system. This includes $2.5 billion on kill chain preemptive strike platform assets, $1.2 billion for Korea air and missile defense projects, and $500 million for Korea massive punishment and retaliation projects. The proposal also includes over $6 billion to continue developing South Korea's KF-21 fighter jet, set to be completed in 2026. Monthly wages for enlisted troops will also increase next year. The rate of increase in the defense sector overall exceeds the proposed total government spending for 2 years in a row, stressing the importance of the defense sector given the grave security situation at home and abroad. Meanwhile, the Unification Ministry saw an overall decrease in budget of 3.7% for next year. Despite the decline, however, South Korea will seek to increase settlement funding for North Korean defectors in 2025. The funding to support North Korean defectors' early settlement is set to increase by 50% to over $11,000. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
President Yoon will deliver a briefing to the nation and hold a press conference on Thursday to highlight his administration's major policy tasks. A presidential official said Tuesday that the briefing will focus on the government's goals and progress in reforming the public pension system, the labor environment, the medical sector, and education, as well as improve the nation's chronically low birth rate. In particular, Yoon is expected to lay out the direction of the government's pension reform plan, as the current National Pension Fund is projected to run out by the year 2055. The official said the president's speech will touch upon themes including people's livelihoods, public safety, reform, and communication. Meanwhile, the National Assembly is holding a plenary session tomorrow where it has agreed to pass a set of so-called livelihood bills following weeks-long bipartisan disputes. Lawmakers are also working on contending ones, such as the Nursing Act. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-woo reports.
For the first time since its launch in May, the 22nd National Assembly is ready to hammer out a set of so-called livelihood bills with bipartisan agreement. Among them is a revision to an existing act expanding support for the victims of real estate rental fraud. Both the ruling People Power Party and the main opposition Democratic Party agreed on the change, which will guarantee the victims of rental scams up to 20 years of residence in the property they've rented. Another new proposal restricts the rights of parents to inherit their deceased sons or daughters' money and assets when they did not sufficiently carry out their parental duties. The so-called Kuhara bill is named after the late K-pop star whose mother and brother disputed over who would inherit the singer's money after her death. And amid calls for practical support for working parents is a bill calling for the extension of paternity leave from the current 10 to 20 days and fertility treatment leave from the current 3 to 6 days. And for the socially vulnerable are bills to lower energy costs for their homes, as well as the redevelopment of old, worn-out housing. Despite the rare move of unity, however, possible tensions may arise as the DP tries to push for opposition-led bills that have been vetoed by President Yoon Suk-yeol. The party said it's possible they'll put up for a revote a bill on economic relief payment in the form of vouchers worth around 250,000 Korean won, or roughly around $180 to each South Korean citizen. The PPP, on the other hand, is calling it a move to, quote, sprinkle cash and remains opposed to it. If the main opposition goes through with the vote, a strong protest is expected from the ruling party. Meanwhile, the National Assembly Health and Welfare Committee is planning to hold multiple subcommittee meetings right up to the plenary session on Wednesday afternoon to discuss the ruling party push changes to the Nursing Act to provide the legal basis for medical practice by specialized physician assistants. Lee Si-woo, Arirang News.
The latest regarding North Korea. Some signs of activity have been detected at the reclusive regime's Yongbyon nuclear complex. That's according to an IAEA report where its head Rafael Grossi stated that a discharge of water was spotted coming from the light water reactor's cooling system from mid-October last year to mid-March of this year. He also noted that the reactor appears to have been operated intermittently since April, adding that the discharge of warm water indicates test runs. The reactor has long been suspected as a means for North Korea to increase its production of nuclear material used to make warheads. The Ministry of Unification is verifying a civic group's claim that more than a dozen North Korean defectors have been arrested and detained in China. American media outlet Radio Free Asia reported last week that 15 defectors who were trying to come to South Korea were arrested by Chinese police in Kunming, Winnan province in China, who sent them for detention in Jilin province. The media quoted the head of the South Korean-based civic group Kyoraeor Unification Solidarity, while reiterating that the South Korean government believes no North Korean defectors currently overseas should be forcibly repatriated against their will. A ministry official said it was contacting the group to confirm the report. Shifting gears a bit, when it comes to South Korea and content, people mainly think of what's been exported. But now the Korean market is becoming a prime place for overseas companies looking to be the ones exporting. Both sides are gathering at Asia's largest broadcasting and video market, which kicked off today in Seoul. Our culture correspondent Song Yujin reports.
We're living in a world overflowing with content, from movies and TV shows to streaming originals. In this vast sea, the demand for Korean content is at an all-time high, as Emmy-winning actor Lee Jung-jae, known for Netflix's Squid Game and The Acolyte on Disney+, puts it.
When I walk into a hotel abroad, staff who recognize me no longer just mention Squid Game, but ask about the latest Korean dramas, movies, or variety shows. Sometimes ones I haven't even seen yet. On set, it's even more intense with questions about directors, writers, and actors.
The global rise of K-content is driven by talented content creators, but it's equally important to have platforms that bring their work to the world. This is where Broadcast Worldwide, or BCWW, plays a leading role.
So this year's Broadcast Worldwide, also known as the International Broadcasting and Video Market, is the largest in scale in its 24-year history. Now this year, more than 270 companies from 13 countries have gathered here in Seoul to discuss potential business opportunities.
After a COVID-19 hiatus, we held the event in person last year, securing over $80 million in contracts. With more global buyers here this year, we expect even better results.
For K-content, BCWW is a gateway to the global stage. This production company won the grand prize at this year's BCWW New Media Content Awards for its 2023 drama, Not Others, which has been exported to the Americas, Europe, and Japan.
We participate in BCWW every year to showcase our dramas to overseas buyers. The event has been instrumental in helping Korean dramas expand beyond domestic audiences and reach international markets.
For overseas companies, it's an opportunity to break into the Korean market. This content distribution company based in Istanbul recently signed a deal to release one of its movies in Korean theaters by 2025. They're hoping to land more deals at this event.
This will also open some doors for us for further licensing. Because, first, if a content has never been licensed in a region, then the broadcasters can be a little bit, can hesitate a little bit to invest on that project.
Providing an opportunity for both domestic and overseas content to broadcast worldwide, BCWW 2024 runs until Thursday. Song Yujin, Arirang News.
Hyundai Motor has been pushing to start EV production at its plant in the U.S. state of Georgia within this year. But this may be looking at a potential hurdle, as the U.S. authorities are reportedly going to reassess the plant's environmental impact on the region's water supply. Yoon explains.
The Associated Press reported on Monday that a U.S. federal agency will be reassessing its environmental permit for South Korean firm Hyundai Motor's electric vehicle plant in Georgia. This comes after a conservation group, the Army Corps of Engineers,
claimed that the plant's potential impact on the local water supply was not properly examined by regulators. The conservationists stated in a letter on Friday that the project's permit application in 2022 never mentioned the amount of water Hyundai would be pulling, up to 25 million liters per day, from a local underground aquifer, which is a major source of drinking water in the area. The letter said that the project would have negligible impacts on municipal and private water supplies. Hyundai Motor's $7.6 billion plant, designated to produce electric vehicles and the batteries that power them, has been pushing to start production at the plant located in Bryan County, west of Savannah, before the end of the year. And it was earlier in 2024 that further details of the plant's needs came out as the Georgia Environmental Protection Division considered a proposal for 4 new wells to supply water to the auto factory. While it is not known how long the additional review might take, the Army Corps has stated that the permit is currently still valid, and they have not asked for work on the Hyundai Motor Factory to stop, reiterating that their intention is not to delay or disrupt any construction at the plant site. Hyundai Motor Group Metaplant America said in a statement Monday that it will assist as needed to ensure that Army Corps gets the information it needs. And one of the local agencies that worked with state officials to bring Hyundai to Georgia said the information requested is expected to be submitted within 10 days, reaffirming that the reevaluation shouldn't cause any holdup to the project. 이은진, Arirang News.
Also in North America, starting October, electric vehicles shipped to Canada from China, including those of Tesla, will face a 100% tariff. Our Buniran covers this latest decision.
Canada has announced that it will be applying a tariff on imports of Chinese-made electric vehicles over what it says is an unfair advantage for China in the global market. The announcement came on Monday following a meeting between U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau the day before.
We're listening to automakers, we're listening to workers. Shortly, we will be introducing a 100% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles and a 25% tariff on Chinese steel and aluminum.
These new tariffs match the levies imposed by the Biden administration and come amid mounting trade tensions between China and countries in the Western Hemisphere. Canada's switch-up in automotive policy to protect domestic car production starts on October 1st, and duties will apply to all EVs imported from China. This includes those made by Tesla, and the announcement resulting in shares dropping by 3%. China is Canada's second-largest trading partner, and auto shipments from China surged nearly 5-fold year-on-year in 2023 as a result of Tesla's EVs. In a similar case with the European Union, the EU lowered its tariff rate for Tesla in comparison to its rates for other Chinese EV imports. Other than Tesla, leading Chinese EV maker BYD has been trying to enter the Canadian market, establishing a Canadian corporate entity and filing a notice saying that it plans to sell passenger cars in Canada as early as next year. BYD currently sells electric buses in Canada and the US and sells EVs and hybrid cars in Mexico and other Latin American countries. Due to concerns that Chinese automakers could bypass trade restrictions by entering the American market through Mexico, the US is considering ways to block this from happening. The new Chinese EV tariff in the United States, which raises the rate from 25% to 100%, is due to go live from the end of August, while the European Union is set to impose additional tariffs starting in November. 문혜련, Arirang News.
The families of South Korean victims of Japan's wartime forced labor have won a damages suit against a Japanese company. The Gwangju District Court on Tuesday ruled in favor of 9 family members of 6 South Korean victims against Mitsubishi Materials. The court ordered the Japanese firm to pay around 16 to 100 million won per victim, which works out to be between 12,500 to 75,000 US. However, the court dismissed lawsuits against 3 plaintiffs, citing insufficient evidence that the deceased had worked at Mitsubishi's mine. Many Koreans were subjected to forced labor during the Japanese colonial period by Mitsubishi Mining, currently known as Mitsubishi Materials. Russia staged air assaults on Ukraine overnight, targeting energy facilities, which killed at least 7 people and injured dozens. An Sung-jin has the latest.
Russia launched drones and missiles across Ukraine on Monday in what may be its biggest air attack so far. Ukraine's air forces say more than 200 Russian drones and missiles were used in the attack. That will be more than 150 used in Russia's previous largest air attacks last December. The State Emergency Service of Ukraine have stated that at least 7 people were killed in Monday's missile and drone attacks and more than 40 were injured.
Each such strike reminds us again and again of the need for long-range capabilities, the necessity to provide our defense forces with sufficient long-range weapons, capable of destroying terrorists precisely where they launch their attacks from.
Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal stated that Russia targeted around 15 energy facilities overnight, leading to an emergency blackout. The mayor of Kyiv said all electricity and water supplies were cut off due to these power outages. Air raid alerts were issued across the country.
I would like to see a response to Moscow so that they will feel what we feel. I want to provide us more and allow us to use long-range missiles inside Russia so that they will feel the horror we feel.
Russian authorities stated that they targeted Ukrainian gas and power supplies, arguing that this infrastructure is used to support Ukrainian missile and drone production. The Ukraine Air Force claimed that it shot down 102 of the 127 missiles and 99 out of the 109 drones. Ukraine has further asked for help from the West.
This is the optimal counterterrorism tactic that every one of our partners, from whom we expect decisions and long-range capabilities, would have the right to employ and would certainly use for their own defense.
Meanwhile, the International Atomic Energy Agency is set to visit the Kursk region of Russia on Tuesday local time to conduct an on-site inspection, as Russia has claimed that Ukraine attacked the Kursk nuclear power plant with drones, which Ukraine has denied. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Azerbaijan is a country that has been extending its influence beyond Central Asia with its geographic location and energy resources. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji spoke with the Azerbaijan president's representative for special assignments on potential opportunities for cooperation with South Korea.
Azerbaijan, which has had diplomatic relations with South Korea for over 30 years, plays a crucial role in connecting Asia and Europe. This is because the so-called Middle Corridor, a trade route that cuts through Central Asia, passes through Azerbaijan. This path has been gaining more importance after the northern route, one of the most popular global shipping routes that passes through Russia, has become increasingly unreliable. The Azerbaijan president's representative for special assignments, who visited South Korea as part of efforts to explore new opportunities in bilateral cooperation, suggests that Korean transport operators and logistics companies use these trade benefits, and has hopes of expanding the economic cooperation to produce green energy.
I think that we can diversify the portfolio of our energy cooperation by adding their renewables, because Azerbaijan has an enormous potential in renewable sources of energy like wind and solar and hydropower.
At the same time, he also urged South Korea to support Azerbaijan's peace process, as the country has long been in conflict with Armenia over an area that is internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, but has been controlled by ethnic Armenians for decades.
As a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, and being an important player in international affairs, the Republic of Korea, by supporting the peace agenda, which is promoted by Azerbaijan today, can make an important contribution so that this peace is finally achieved.
Other than economic and security issues, he highlighted the importance of cultural exchanges and increasing tourism opportunities, adding that establishing direct flights between the two countries could be a way to get this started. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
The severe heat has been dampened, but the hot weather stayed today. In the heat, there are showers in the inland areas and rain on the east coast. The expected amount of rainfall in inland areas will be around 5 to 40 millimeters. In addition, up to 80 millimeters is expected on the east coast by Thursday due to the 10th typhoon of the season, Typhoon Sansan, heading north to Japan. Another tropical night is in store on Jeju Island overnight. However, in inland areas such as Seoul, tropical nights will slow down a bit tonight. In the middle of the day tomorrow, the temperatures will rise again, and the daytime heat is likely to become temporarily stronger. Tomorrow, Seoul, Chuncheon, Daegu, and Gyeongju will start off at 24 degrees Celsius. Highs will move up to 31 to 33 degrees across the country. The cold air will come down with a typhoon and the heat will ease for a while. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for today. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 9 a.m. Korea time.